Das Unmögliche früher ist auf dem Weg in die Berge Pyeongchangs. Spiele des Friedens und der Annäherung sollen es eigentlich werden. Doch das ist nicht ausgelegt. Durch eine kraftvolle Widersprüche auf die koreanischen Händen.
So, und jetzt? Jetzt könnte man natürlich fragen, und was ist heute sonst noch so los? Was bewegt die Menschen heute noch so? Ja, also in Wien zum Beispiel ist heute Abend der Vulkantag. Das ist ein großes Thema in Österreich und in Wien. Im Rheinland kann ich Ihnen sagen, da ist die Hölle los. Da ist Weiberfastnacht. Das ist natürlich was Besonderes. Meine Krawatte ist noch da, aber wir sollten zumindest einen Blick auf den Karneval werfen, denn klar, viele beschäftigt sind.
11:11 Uhr, Startschuss am Fastnachtsbrunnen in Mainz. Die tollen Tage beginnen. Gotjokus hat mal wieder ein Einsehen und schickt Sonnenschein satt, wenn auch bei eiskalten Temperaturen.
Schöner denn je, blauer Himmel, Sonnenschein, was will man mehr als bei der Fastnacht?
Ich hab voll Klamotte ohne Brunne und dann trinken wir noch Schöpfen und dann ist das alles gut.
Feiern, 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 oder? Bis Dienstag, das schaffen wir auf jeden Fall.
Epizentrum des Karnevalwahnsinns, feierwütige wilde Weiber samt Anhang. Auch hier wird bei bestem Wetter geschunkelt, getrunken und das Leben genossen. Von überall kommen sie in die Rheinmetropole.
Wir tun ungefähr einen Bus, da sind wir hier und das ist der schöne Anfang von Karneval. Das hat sich warm trinken? Ja, machen wir hier. Super und Wetter.
Hey, Tammy.
How's it going?
Good. Hey, Heiner.
Hi. Nice to see you both, and both of Heiner and both of you. Yeah.
Hey, Doug. Harry.
Hi.
Hello. So Tammy, you're still alive. Everything went okay yesterday?
Yes. Last night I had my last board meeting. We had our annual general meeting for the credit union, and I stepped off the board because I termed out. So, and I was elected onto the credit committee, which is another elected body we have. So I'm still in there, but no responsibility.
Yeah.
And then we went out for drinks, so I'm a little after that this morning.
So how does it feel?
Amazing. Yeah, I feel like it went really well.
Yeah.
Anna. And yeah, it feels amazing to.
Who does the echo?
Yeah, it's amazing to still be involved, but to see the gathering of our community last night and know that I was appreciated for my contributions, that felt amazing. And I still get to be involved, but a little bit on my own terms now. So, And
Tammy,
I have missed you. Hi, Heiner. Yeah.
Tammy, congrats. I think it's the eldest position to step back, still be responsible, but not to be in the nitty-gritty. I really appreciate that. And so you can be in a jumpers or fire jumping suit, do something what is really needed.
Yeah, I'm sorry to have missed you guys. I just watched the unblocking, which was last Sunday, which I really missed. And it was lovely. I really enjoyed it. It was covered a lot of ground. And I really appreciated being able to see it.
I've had a little less time to review this last week, but I was kind of doing pretty well with that for a while. And it's powerful to watch them. I don't know who has been able to review. Yeah. I'm curious about what people's experience with the review is.
Are you talking about particularly reviewing something that you've also been in?
Both, because they're different, right? Like I remember I missed a Thursday a month or so ago, and when I watched it, I just was like, wow, they're all my friends. And I wasn't there, and I got to be able to witness what it was like to not have my energy in the mix and feel that difference. But also to watch with myself included is another really powerful but different type of review. Yeah.
I've kind of been doing a half review and half, yes, I'll say tooling, you know. So I've been taking some of our notes and some of the transcripts and putting them easily accessible right next to the videos. And I don't know whether anybody's actually noticed or used them yet, but you know, if you actually scan them quickly and say, hey, there's something here that looks like it's interesting, it has the time tag off to the left where you can actually start, you know, and listen or back up a little bit. So I'm hoping that that is a way for people to now navigate these videos a bit more easily. I mean, obviously it's different from immersing yourself in the entire 3 hours, but you know, not everybody can do that every time. I also did that for Fleming's conversational experiment yesterday, just to see if they might want to take advantage of that.
Okay, leaderless. What do we want to do today?
I'll do a quick apology. Tomorrow, I'm taking Gail to surgery tomorrow. Hopefully it's fairly routine, but I'll be starting around 10:30 a.m. my time. Her surgery is actually at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So unfortunately, I'll be missing the Focus Friday. So I'm gonna have to say sorry for missing that tomorrow. And I think there's no reason I should be missing the Sunday, but if I miss it at all, it'll be related to that and complications, but that is like a 0.1% of that happening. Okay. In fact, I'm going to talk to others also on Sunday. So just want to make that apology for not being here tomorrow.
So we usually do check-ins, but we don't have to do what we usually do.
I do like check-ins in order to feel where everybody is at this moment. I could start. I'm a little all over.
Check-ins. Hey, could I ask one of these hypothetical science fiction type questions to guide the check-in?
Sure.
I thought of it just recently. If we could contemplate a genetic mutation that you'd like to see for the human race, what would that look like?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Well, where I'm in, it's between boxes and books. And I'm presently reviewing the State of the Future report from Jerome Glenn, 20 years future studies. And actually, I feel lost because I'm missing so many of your live meetings. Some of them I can review, but many of the deep threads following up, I feel I don't have the time, but it looks like we haven't met since 1 or 2 weeks. It looks like we are still connected. What I have on my lap here, you see, it's always books. But this is what I wanted to show to Sam. Magic Square, Cities in China, 400, 500 pages of what our culture didn't take for real, or science did ignore. There's so much more, but we don't have time to digest. So where do we focus? And that's why I'm here.
Is that Professor Schintz's work?
Yes.
Ah, good.
If you come, I put it on your lap. I mean, this is depth. And the new book shows we don't have maps. No, we have maps, but it's been between the schools and the countries very often ignored or forgotten. Come over.
I'll have to start working out so I can read that book.
Well, since it's a tea party, I can also put in a book in the chat. This is a Dutch title, but it's an original American book from this beginning of the century, and it's about 4,000 years circular landbouw. What's landbouw? Landbouw, wie heißt? Help me, Heiner. What's landbouw? Agriculture. That's the word. And it's also from somebody who traveled to China and Japan and kind of explored how they did it there. And they were very advanced in surviving on a valley with just a little bit of piece of land. And we could learn a lot from that. So
I cannot resist. This is another guy of our general thinkers. Some of you are connected with that group. It's the beauty of impact. It is done by a great guy who is like the right hand of Al Gore, ambassadors of all his youth ambassadors. And he just gave it to me 2 days ago in Hamburg. And the next is agriculture. This is health. So maybe we make a session of our favorite books we never had time to read.
That's my current favorite book. So I'm not quite sure how to wordify it, but in terms of the evolutionary shift, what did you call it, Sam? Okay, he's an evolvement of some kind, biological evolvement. So a biological evolvement that I would...
Was.
Huh?
Mutation.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll go with evolvement because that's
Okay.
a little bit more like something I would choose or be intentional. Would be, and you know what, I feel that this is happening anyway, is to really open a sense of empathy within us so that we could viscerally feel the impacts that we have on others and the earth.
Well, we do have the capacity when it's between people that are close to us, but we don't have the capacity once it's beyond my horizon, so to speak. Or I really have to imagine myself being there. I'm one of my Facebook friends is a very poor 20-year-old guy from the Gambia, who connected me like many other Africans because he wanted a new phone. But I kind of kept the conversation going for more over a year, and I know he's not just, he's of course has a sometimes rather simple view on life, short term and all, but the fact is that he is 21, I guess now, 21, 22, and he has no father. He's the only son of his mother, who just has other daughters. So, and he's kind of responsible for the survival of this small family with his mother, his wife, and his child. And he has no other source of income than going into the woods and collect firewood. And they sometimes get kicked out of it. So I sometimes send them money, and I said, I don't want to send you money, but I can help you getting the information, because there's a lot of possibilities just over the internet just to learn what you could do. But then again, it's very hard because he got sick because he ate by lack of food, he ate something that probably wasn't good for him. So he's sick now. And but I kind of shy away from being his only source of survival and keep sending him money, because that's also like a never-ending story. I would love to help him to become independent and more thriving, but it's a very difficult challenge. And now that I am connected with him, I also hate to just let him die. And of course, I let millions of people die because I just can't help everybody. But now it became personal, it's different.
Tammy, that I would prefer.
Anna, you're coming in and out. Maybe your connection. Maybe others have been able to hear you, but I wasn't able to.
You seem to freeze as well, Anna. I hope it's not due to what I said.
Can you hear me now? Is it clear? Okay, let's just hope that it carries on. So what I was saying was, I really loved what you said, Tammy, that don't like the idea of a mutation I could control that feels like it's completely out of touch with what is emerging. You spent a lot of time talking about that in the last blocking video, so I've got that on my mind. Yeah, I would love that idea that Tammy has of making us more conscious, more aware of connecting, wanting to connect, our feelings to connect with other people, and with nature, and with animals, and with the environment, and with everything around. Really it would be wonderful for people to wake up and appreciate the beauty that is here in this world and really feel like we have to protect this rather than exploit it. So, you know, I think this is happening to some extent. I would just like to push it harder, make it go further.
Okay, now I could think of a mutation, thinking about what I just heard. We all naturally can feel if something's wrong, but everything is okay, we just don't notice. Because when it's okay, nothing needs to happen. It's arranged it in such a way that only the things that go wrong ask our attention, because the things that are going well don't need any attention. And due to that, natural pattern, we just are not aware of the abundance we already live in, and we don't really notice, don't share. So, kind of the positive feedback loop as a mutation, or what is it? How would I call this? It would be kind of, might be neat, but also might be a problem, because you never know what those mutations evoke.
I'd just like to put a question to you, Harry, about that, whether you really believe that sort of looking at what's wrong rather than at what's right is a natural quality of...
Yes, I'm certain it is.
Well, I think we could have a huge, long discussion about that.
Oh yes, but then I'd rather bombard you first with information before we do that. I've studied it quite lengthy.
Well, other people still need to respond, I guess, but I would love to hear your information, Harry.
Okay, there's a Nobel Prize winner that's called Manfred Eigen. He must be somewhere in the 90s, but he's still living. And he wrote a book called The Rules of the Game, How the Rules of Nature Govern Chance. And that basically explains my point in the most simple fashion I can think of. And if you think about that nature uses as little energy as possible to achieve what keeping us alive, some reasoning might get you there as well, I would guess. But it's we could go into the discussions. Fine, this is a tea party. Fine by me.
There's some monkey see, monkey do to do with this as well, though. Like, what we see is what we gravitate towards doing. And okay, so if you look at the current state of the world today, everything's pretty fucked. And that creates in us a sense of it's not possible to change it. And so you have a lot more people that are looking at the problems and being affected by them. And I think that the switch is in not just the path of least resistance or the way a system works if it is just left to do its thing on its own, but how do we consciously enliven and engage and be in and evolve from within it? And, you know, if you look at, for example, like our conversations, for the first couple of months, oftentimes there would be, oh no, that word doesn't work. Oh wait, this, you know, we are looking, and so I agree. I think it is natural to look at the problems and look where, you know, stuff doesn't make sense. Absolutely. And I think it's our task to be conscious about what it is that we're doing while we're in it, to help to focus our attention in a conscious way.
Tammy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, I feel triggered now. We say out of sight is out of mind, because we ignore what we can see directly in front of us. And if it's a little bit further away, it's lost. We had with John Warfield the thinking about, should we do it? Can implies ought. Should we really go into this? And all these discussions I observed for some years is, when it is really on, then it shows that we ignore it. So many of the central issues, like population, like density, like scaling, are ignored. You see, I'm so agitated and I'm so strong now because I see all this Club of Rome, Vatican, all trying to get their voices heard to wherever. It is not the UN. So anyway, I'm involved presently. There is a radical ecological conversion meeting at the Vatican, I think in 3 weeks, where finally we try to go beyond the academic and the church's view to a broader view. But I feel we don't have the words for that. So I'm absolutely desperate, and maybe you can help me.
Could you tell a little more then? Could you say a little more about it, Heiner, so we can help you?
Well, I cannot send you the invitation.
No, but you can talk to us.
It's called the Discovering the Intrinsic Value of Creatures, Human and the Non-Humans. So all this discussion we had in New York and Geneva on the right of nature, on the right of the humans, on the right of the non-living things, what I try to cover here with humanists fighting against structuralists, not understanding that the humanist is just an egocentric view of human and culture. But when Levi-Strauss tried to step back, he was screwed, stoned. So anyway, I have all these things on my agenda. I feel very much alone, and I really appreciate what just Tammy said, that it is possible to go out of first line, not to second line, but backstage, to really steer a broader picture. So anyway, I appreciate this here, and I feel there's so much meaning behind words. So I feel Anna very much looking into first level of what a word means to me, instead of stepping out and saying, what is a scene? Which scales, proportions, consequences? So anyway, I like this environment. I really appreciated recently with this woman who is not here at the moment, Wonsager. Well, I forgot her name.
Deborah.
Yes, Deb, not Debbie.
Deborah.
She's so strange out of the box. I hope she hears this here. I think we have to come from lunatic to down to earth and beyond words, because our discussions, you see, I've seen so many discussions. People try to put certain words into certain boxes, which is good for their jargon, for their environment, and all the others are just looking for some certain triggering moments or terms, and they immediately understand what the people are talking about, but they don't get it this at all. Sorry, I was too long.
No, you weren't. I would like to just put a recent experience right next to it, and just as inspiration. This weekend, I started my weekend doing 5 rhythm dances, a double wave, and that was great for me. And then with a dancing friend of mine, I visited an exposition, and we met 2 other people. Also, a Dutch lady I knew by face but not by name. I spoke for her the first time, and a friend of my friend, a friend of Marketa. She's from Czechia, and there was a Belgian guy, Stijn, who happened to be a photographer. So then said, okay, let's go to let's have how do you say that? French fries. And we go together. We bought a family package and we went to the house of this other woman. I lost the name for the second. Okay, but then there we were 4 sitting on, with 4 of us sitting on the floor eating the French fries and having a great conversation, and became more and more personal, intimate, because the kind of people we were. And then Stijn started sharing how scared and anxious he was by nature. And it happened because when you eat French fries, you make a sound. It's scratching. What's the word in English? What are the words?
Crunchy.
Crunchy, yes. It's crunchy food. I love it. It was very good French fries, so it was very crunchy. But he said, okay, he had to sit somewhere else because he could not handle that, because he was too oversensitive for just input like that. And so there was a trigger for kind of a reaction with him. That of course ended up being a conversation about problems like that, and this became even more intimate due to this topic and all that. And we wanted to help, but also we wanted to eat and all that. Okay, but to cut a long story short, I don't know how this came about, but then we ended up in a pile cuddling, the 4 of us. And
Sorry, I didn't understand that. In a pile?
Yes, cuddling.
Cuddling. Okay.
Yes, what's the word? Yes. And the very nice thing is that what Stijn said, that he felt like he was so anxious, he was at the ceiling and he dropped to the floor immediately. And so the real effective communication did not need words. So that might be a suggestion for the Vatican, Heiner. Just cuddle the Pope.
Hashtag hug the Pope.
I would like to share what Tony wrote for our Budapest meeting 20 years ago. It is like all these conventions, all these agreements should be danced. Maybe they should sing it. And this outstanding paper I would like to share, because he was really into going beyond words, to really go to deep meaning and compassion. And this is what I'm missing now. You see, I'm running through town the last couple of days because only today we have a government, and Germany is frantic without having a government. And they want to have some parties screw a deal for the next 4 years for the legislature, and then follow, and everybody has to vote. I mean, they are elected to parliament to vote according to this recommendations. So the whole question of what is credibility, what is voting, what is knowing what are you talking about, and what are you voting for in parliament, all this is at stage. So I'm really crossing such boundaries, and I realize we are so much in boxes. I mean, not only you in America, but we here in all Europe.
Yes, so get out of the box.
I'm curious, Harry, what the story that you told, how that was relevant to where we began, which was this idea that we naturally look for what is wrong rather than for what is right.
Well, the connection as I experienced it, I don't know if I really get your question right, but of course, when there's something wrong enough, then we feel compelled to help. That's a natural thing, because if somebody loses something on the street or fall off their bikes or so, people rush over automatically. It's an instinctive reaction. So then we respond to something that's apparently wrong. And then we want to help. But you also know that that depends kind of if that lever is pushed hard enough, because you also see people being annoyed on some part of the street, and people, or there's the bystander problem, that if too many people are around it, people tend to wait. And what we also know is somebody asking for a volunteer, nobody stops forward. They wait for you to step forward, and we all do that. So we're kind of economical in investing in problems of somebody else, but only if it's urgent and enough, and then we don't think, then we react on impulse. So this development was started by somebody you were close to us that was basically in distress, and we all felt compelled to help with advice, of course, not doing anything. And how this come about that we started touching it, that there's just one woman that said this kind of, she basically was in this seat, kind of on a couch, so to speak, and she invited us to that she just kind of suggested it, and the atmosphere was so that I because I like dancing and touching, I immediately responded, and Stijn reluctantly approached us, and then Marketa just dived on top of us. It was that simple. I don't know if I answered your question.
I think that was a great, because that is what it is. We do respond, and I liked how you.
You're gone.
To the other.
Tammy, I lost you.
Oh, sorry. You started that piece, sharing that piece, Harry, by saying that you wanted to put that story right next to Heiner's story, but it does fit. I feel that when we can feel into it, it is kind of that bridge of consciousness, like, the woman chose, and everybody then chose to respond, and yeah, that's what I have.
Did I answer your question, Anna?
No, not directly, but my question could have been somehow wrong. I don't know quite.
There are no wrong questions. You need to get what you want, I guess.
Well, no, it was more to do with what you said originally, because you said something about that we naturally look for what is wrong rather than what is right. And maybe I didn't understand what you were saying. And maybe if you could just talk about that for a bit, I would understand it better.
Well, I think I did talk about it, but I might not have understood you properly enough. So you might be more precise in your questions.
I could try helping you out, Harry.
Yes.
Can I help Harry, Anna?
Please, yeah.
This could be too simplistic, but it seems like as we try to survive, we're looking for threats. We call these threats fears, I guess, because we're trying to eliminate them because they help us survive. And I think my understanding is that's how we create our interpretation of the senses around us first. That we have to deal with those first level needs of survival. And that's really what this gigantic thing on the top of our shoulders, which, seems to be fairly unique, has enabled us to do, is to identify those threats and deal with those threats by putting up barriers, putting up artificial structures, using tools, digging holes, whatever it is that helps us survive. And over time creates the internet and creates, Zoom and all these sort of things. But if I might, let me address what I think is kind of the direction of your question, which is, does it need to be that way? And this is what I'm reminded by when Marianne Williamson says everything is either a cry for love or an expression of love or something like that. I don't know, somebody else could actually dig up the actual quote. But if we actually transform a fear-based response to a more centered response, that's what Marianne Williamson calls miracles. And I think that's more the point that I think you were trying, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think we are in a process, as us as a group, and me as an individual, and maybe in a larger context as well, trying to create exactly that miracle. And now you refer to the brain. I read a book in, I think, 1970 something. That's called The Tears of the Crocodile, and it was the first book that I read about the layeredness of the brain. And if you're talking about the fear instinct, the fear reflex is now very well known as the amygdala response, one of the simplest part of the brain that we share with reptiles. So that's always on the lookout for problems. And when you're stressed, you only see more and more problems. That's what it does. This anxiety kind of raises that awareness. And on top of that, we have this the largest part of our brain is the emotional part that kind of feels into it. And in that part, there is also our tribal instincts that where do we belong with the group. And it's proven also scientifically that we kind of relate more with people that are like us. So it's tested that like a white doctor. No, it's the white people were looking at people being pinched. And if some people is pinched, then we have a bodily response that can be measured. But when it's done to a black person so there's a larger difference, we don't respond as much. So this is basically biological. I'm sorry. So that's all been tested and proven. So that's in our brains. We cannot help that. But above animals, we have a very evolved neocortex that was meant for navigating, but we also can navigate metaphorically. These days we call that reasoning. And with reasoning, we made the society we have today, but we now need to rise above it to a next cultural level. And Graves calls this, Ken Wilber says it's a T level. And the essence of this awareness is that we rise above the fears. And when you rise above fears, then you can start thinking about, okay, I might be, I am, looking at the state of the planet, but fear is not the driver anymore, because I need to rise above it in order to find solutions. Over. Thanks for nodding.
So what I'm feeling is that it's not worth trying to change someone's basic beliefs. So even though I may see things differently from you in that sense, and I'll just say that how I see it differently is because for me, the love instinct as opposed to the fear instinct, I would say the love instinct is more basic, is prior. The fear instinct comes in later. But that's just my opinion.
Well, let's agree that's a belief. It's a belief.
Belief.
Yes,
yeah, you could say it's a belief. And I understand that you feel that your belief is proven scientifically, and that's fine. And I don't think we need to argue about that,
No, there's no need for that.
because we're both wanting to go to that higher level, or whatever, a different level, of making sure that people are coming from love rather than fear.
Yes, and it's also scientifically proven that it's useless to try to change somebody else's beliefs.
Okay.
You had something and then you didn't, Sam?
I was going to say something about the mirror neurons being the phenomenon that I thought Harry was talking about, but I don't think that adds much to the conversation, so I decided not to say it.
I think it does. It is that piece of that's the biological piece of being able to take in our environment, and I think that there is change that happens in that. When I see someone having an insight, when I experience someone sharing an insight, if they're able to embody and word it, I have a feeling inside of me, and I can change what I think based on what I'm seeing. And that kind of interaction that happens on an internal state is a force, and it is part of what's happening. And in terms of becoming more conscious and focusing our attention consciously on what it is that we want to understand, that creates a pathway for us to come together, to learn from each other, to change our beliefs. Doug talks about, you can change your mind, right? But I can't change you guys' mind, but I can change my own mind. And I can't do it without you guys, as Harry likes to say. That's really been resonant. I've heard that so many times over this last week. Just your voice, Harry, saying, I have my piece, but I can't do this without you guys. And this conversation and how we're passing it along feels like what I've been really, really yearning for, because my piece is just one. And I'm learning from all of you, and you're allowing me to think of things in ways that I wouldn't without you. And this kind of thinking is really exciting. I'm really excited to see what can be born from this level of trust, love, conscious intent, and sharing.
Doug, I see you resonating and shaking your head, but you've been silent all the time. Where are you?
Well, just, all of the pieces that are being shared have a place in my cosmology. And for me, where Tammy ended up sort of hits the nail on the head, which is, our emotional connection response. In my frame of reference, there's love and fear. Those are the two primary emotional responses. Everything else is derivative. So anger is a derivative off of fear. Sadness is a derivative off of fear. So they're the source for what we give birth to in our head in terms of an idea or a vision or a belief. And I do believe we can change core beliefs. for ourselves. I don't believe we can change core beliefs of others.
Sounds like core belief.
What? It is a core belief. And well, it's also sort of, empirically, it's my experience in the workshop I teach. Because in my frame of reference, and what distinguishes us from nature is that animals don't have beliefs, they have knowings. They experience in real time, they sense in real time, and they learn and know themselves and the system around them. Our cognitive, higher level, bigger gray matter, rational thing is what makes us unique, and we have beliefs, and they're abstract, they're rational, and they're also constructed, like we make them. I make mine, usually really young, and but I author them, and I forget that I authored them over a lifetime, and I lose connect with the moment of choice when I came to a conclusion I came to, getting it in the teeth with a baseball bat at my brother's hand because I was catcher. My father called for us to go, and he was mid-swing, and I went headed for the car. And it was like, holy crap, that hurts. So, in that moment, I made a choice and belief about me and baseball bats and playing that position. Fast forward 30 years and, give me a metaphoric situation of somebody saying, hey, want to catch? And I'm like, I don't think so. Let somebody else do that. So, surfacing beliefs to me, people being able to do that, connect dots, connect not just the scene of the crime or the origin or the thing that happened, but what was their decision in the face of that, is like, once you make it conscious, once you connect with your authorship, then you have the ability to decide, what? I want to change my mind. Like, I made that decision when I was 3.5. I had no power. I was really short. I couldn't protect myself, or I couldn't do this, or I could, I'm a big person now. I'm an adult. I have authority. I can make a whole different decision around that and ask for a different result. So I think the languaging, Harry, where you started in terms of bad, good or bad, and being drawn to bad, or was it right or wrong and being drawn to wrong? That's a really powerful languaging. I'm not sure that's the languaging I would choose if I was getting what you were saying. I think I experience pull in the face of somebody else's need or pain. And so on a human feeling experience basis, I'm drawn to somebody who needs help or who's in distress. But that languaging tends to have a lot of judgment stirred into it. And I don't know that that's required.
I don't know either, but when I hit my with my thumb with a hammer, I would tend to call it wrong. I don't know what wording you would use.
Painful.
Yeah, that was what I misunderstood.
Okay, agree, but I tend to avoid pain. Let's call it pain. It's fine, if that's a better wording. It's no problem. It's not wrong. It depends on your perception. Heiner.
You see, Doug, I tried to trigger you because all this thing of love and fear and good and pain and happiness and suffering is very deep in my mind. And I've been sharing here in this group for a couple of months this spectrum of meaning, that the same meaning the more you are connected or detached, depending on the scale of zooming in and zooming out where you are, is so much important. So I think we should leapfrog by stepping out and trying to find out what is happening here. We are detached or attached to the micro scale or the macro scale. Anyway, I'm stuck in this since 25 years, and I step back, and I take the pleasure to step back because I somehow can predict how you respond, Doug. Sorry.
You can or you can't predict? You can. Okay, well, so I'm consistent, huh? Well, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Until it becomes painful, I guess.
So as I understand Heiner, he's asking us to step back and take a broader perspective on what we're doing here, rather than feel it as a personal thing, to see it more as a global thing, as a world perspective. Is that what you're saying, Heiner?
Well, we termed the term glocal. So it means zooming in and out, and not just between yourself and others, but across times and scales. I know it's a very, very hard exercise, but I learned from the Sufis like Pir Elayat Khan, to solve a problem is to step back, take your own viewpoint out. And all these religious schools were demanding it, but making commandments and fining it.
So yesterday, because I actually experienced this on both of those scales, and I don't think it's a stepping out. At least for me, it's not about stepping out in extrapolating the bigger. For me, it's about the bigger is here. So yesterday we had a group. Was it yesterday? I can't keep track of days at this point because things blend. But we had a large group, and in the course of it, we had somebody who inadvertently, in the middle of Tammy sharing something and actually asking something, shared his screen and literally filled the screen with a piece of artwork. And because he didn't know the platform, he didn't know that was going to happen. He thought he was just going to fill his square. And he also didn't know how to unshare. So he sort of put up this huge billboard, which cut everybody off from everybody else. It stopped Tammy dead in her tracks because it was impossible in the face of that level of interruption. And this was in Fleming's circle. Heiner, you know Fleming. And Fleming sort of jumped into the breach and started talking over the painting as sort of bridge, doing the good facilitation service thing that somebody does reflexively in the face of that kind of disruption. And I made the comment to everybody, I said, to me after this, I said, we are the world right here, right now. We represent the world. Heiner, are you still there? I just want to make sure, because this is in direct response to you.
Fully with you,
okay.
But I don't want to distract you.
No, that's okay. So bear with me. So I said, we are the world. And what just happened, if you imagine each one of us is a country, or each one of us is a religion, or each one of us is an ethnic identity community, and one person's, was completely blown out by what happened, and some people were put off, disrupted, disconnected, disoriented. There were like 3 or 4 people who were like, what did I do to create this and how do I fix it? And a couple of other people were like going with the flow and trying to just keep their balance. And I said, that's the world. This is our world. And these are the kinds of effects that happen. And this is what happens when a schmuck, who's way out of his pay grade starts, throwing crap at a child who is running a country on the other side of the world, and they both have missiles, and whose missile is bigger? Like, this is that. So I actually believe who we are, what we bring, and what we are doing here is extrapolatable, and that each one of us is an agent of projecting that energy and propagating it. And you come here, and I believe this is different than anything you've touched before, and you've been involved with lots of very smart people with lots of very deep and enlightened conversations. This isn't any of those. And you're going around to all these conferences, and you're going to all these convenings, and you're going to all these places. And I figure if you find a shift and difference in this that's managed to keep your attention here, no small feat. I believe we should pat ourselves in the back for the fact that you're sticking around, because you don't suffer fools gladly and you don't have time to waste. And so I figure, if ripples of this affect you, you're bringing a different you out there. And Harry's bringing a different him, and Sam and me and Tammy. We are the change. And it can be this small, this contained, and that the core difference, the core shift of how are we doing us is the global issue in question. On a global scale, how are we doing us, and how do we do us differently? And that's what's happening here. And out of it is emerging very real, very concrete things, but they're emergent. They're not like my idea, or our idea is going to save the world. It has nothing to do with that. It's like, if we can solve our problem, our solution could solve a whole bunch of people's problems. Not because we own it or authored it or created it, but simply because if it works better and it's open source and it's in service to commons, it'll propagate, it'll spread. And that's in soft territories too. That's in how we're talking to each other, how we're learning and sensing and feeling our way in this. These are, to me, new skills, because they're not in the head, they're not abstract, they're not packaged, they're not part of intellect, they're part of being. Part of it's intellect, it's also heart, it's also body, it's all of it at one time. And if we don't come from that place, then we're doing what we've always done. No difference. And doing this is different for me. To me, this is a learned skill, and it's challenging. And it requires a lot of attention and a lot of energy. And at least for me, commitment. And that is a belief, Harry, absolutely. I believe this is where the change is going to come from. This is what's going to save the world.
Doug.
Yes.
I feel flattened. It looks like you listen to me.
I always listen to you.
No, you see, I have all these experiences with all these big vanities. I even found out in Wikipedia, they, whatever, disgraced me, calling me a vanity, and I didn't know what that means, so I just found out. The problem is that there are so many people who talk big, and so many people who should speak up, and they don't. So what do we do? I feel this group is really listening. And some times feel very, very bad, then I'm throwing out some big names or some big places and some already dead guys. And it is all for self-aggrandization. No, it is out of pain. I feel we are losing so much by reinventing wheels and by not looking what the challenges or the failures of this scaling up without looking into the rebound effects and all this are. So I'm desperate. I'm very happy to be here. And I'm especially learning from Anna because she's helping us to really crystallize our thinking and trying to maybe sharpening our arguments, because I'm totally feeling lost in all this diversity of where we should go. And when I just looked last night into this mega town being planned now in Saudi Arabia, I mean 30 times of New York, I mean the nightmare of the group which I was part of in the mid-70s, where they have learned nothing. So I'm really afraid of the learning curve of the human race. We just look for the big buck short term and ignore. Excuse me. But I will post this link on this megatown they are planning now around the Gulf of Aqaba between Egypt and Jordania, where they really create another harbor for commerce, for power, for exchange in a world of mega, where all these giga towns in China or wherever, where they all failed, and where these people, and I know some of them by heart, did not learn anything. So, excuse me, I'm very agitated because this is now spread forward as this way to save the planet, that we create in the middle of nowhere a giga exchange place only because it's close to the Strait of Suez.
The only place I've been able to go in the face of this insanity is the forgive them for they know not what they do. Like, I don't want to pay attention. I don't want to give energy to what doesn't make sense and isn't working and is propagating and replicative of what's been. I'm only interested in, what do we create today, tomorrow? How do we do it differently? How do we do this better? How do we affect and make it happen? And I am, it's killing me. I have to go. And this is not a conversation I want to leave, but I will be pulling it up to see where you guys go from here. And I've loved this too. This is the stuff. This is where we make it happen.
Doug, if you've got 30 more seconds, I thought I'd close with a riff on your take, okay? I would like for us to consider that there's a possibility there are other groups like us that have possibly started even before us, who would love to guide us, to actually, help us learn what they have learned. I'm trying to figure out how we can connect with those kind of groups. Maybe Heiner represents one, maybe others that we are connected with, each of us represent that.
Well, the enlivening edge blend, like I see a lot more of that in our future. I got to pop. Bye.
I did do a 3-part series with Will a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
So, and we did it all in one go, which was awesome. He's a beautiful human being. And I'm really excited to see what's going to come out of that. So we're going to meet again on Monday. And I think, you know, I'd like to see more sessions that people are choosing who they want to explore and you know, continue to riff on what this can be, because it can be anything, this form, and what we're learning in terms of how we are with each other. I can't even put into words what I'm learning, but I'm feeling it, like the patchwork, the tapestry of thought that's between us. Harry?
Well, I'm struggling with words as well, as I'm a very visual thinker, and I don't want to crash the party with unwanted screen sharing. But I was looking for a picture, and I've kind of been trying to find it as a reaction to, I don't know what has been said, because I kind of overflow my own mind. But if that's interesting for you, I would just like to share a few of my visuals that I kind of looked up while we were talking. And then maybe it's helpful for the conversation, and if not, then you get an impression of the way I think, at least. So, most are mine, but some are not. And I'll start with, if it's okay, I'll share my screen and start with one that's not mine at all, okay? See if that is possible. Is that okay?
Wonderful, thank you, Harry.
Okay. I'll start with then. This is just a screen dump for something. This is about. Can you see? It's just. I think you can see this screen. Just one screen, okay? Not everything. Not my whole desktop. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because I see the whole desktop. Okay. So this is about beliefs, and I think this is a very smart one. So this I noted this one, that most relationships depend on not talking about the underlying driving beliefs, because they are basically too dangerous to talk about. So that's why I kept it in my. And I was trying to find the one about belief bubbles. We basically all have a system that's kind of projects ourselves on the world in the way we look at the world. And sometimes this belief bubble can be kind of popped by some input of somebody else, and then the belief crushed. But that's a very painful to say, not, I would say, unpleasant thing, because then it happened to me like twice in my life, that you think you have a certain view on life and that helps you navigate reality, and then it's all not true. Like when I lost my faith and when my marriage died as well. I thought I had it all figured out. Well, that wasn't true at all. And that's kind of, but seeing your beliefs as a kind of protective bubble that you kind of keep a whole for as a sort of shield of protection, as a filter as well. That's very helpful for me. And we all this is about the layeredness of our brain. Could I enlarge it? Probably so. The deepest layer is that cannot be altered. These are our reflexes, and now we have instincts. On top of that, emotions, and then emotions toward others, like empathy, and then we have convictions, and then we can think about it, deliberations, and we might have other layers. If I go too fast or too slow, just tell me, right?
I would like to just ask you, Harry, about your faith. Would you be prepared to talk about that?
My faith?
Well, yeah, when you lost your faith.
You want to know how? Then you want to hear the story?
Yeah, I would be interested. I don't know if anybody else would be, but I would be.
Okay. Okay, stop me if I take too much space. That's another, that's quite a different story.
Harry, I'm sorry, Harry. Can you read D-share and then just so we can see you better.
I'm sorry.
Harry, please continue your story.
Okay, the story, my story in about losing my faith was when I was about 20. My mother pressed me to become an adult member of the Christian faith I was in, of the church. So I got baptized, and then when you become adult, you have to choose if you want to be a Christian or not. And that was kind of hard for me because I was deeply religious as a child, but then I started kind of seeing some inconsistencies. Very faithful church-goers demonstrating behavior that does not feel like what I understood of the Bible. And there's a notion of like the Holy Spirit. That's something that flies in, makes you very connects you with everything. And then I saw the vicar preaching about it while a child next to him was poking its nose. So I couldn't kind of get that in line. And with all those doubts, I thought, okay, how do I find out my own truth in this? And then I did the same thing in a holiday that Jesus did. I just waited until it was night, and then I crawled up a mountain that I was certainly totally alone, and I started praying. I said, God, if you want me to be a member of this church of yours, then you please give me a sign, let me know what you want from me. And then I listened and listened and listened, and I felt that was one of the loneliest moments in my life because nothing really happened. I didn't feel or perceive anything. So then I said, okay, maybe it's a test. Then then it's a test, and I'll learn about it later. But if not, then I'll just let go. And if you ever come back, I hope to hear from you. And that was the moment I just kind of stepped out of the whole system.
So continue your slides.
Okay, Anna, is this kind of an answer you asked for?
Yes, but also I would love to talk more about it. But
yeah, well, I'll slides first.
Yeah.
Heiner was first. Okay, so I'll start. Sorry, share screen. Share this screen. Okay, this is a picture about the amygdala, thanks to Mike Parker. This is the very instinctive part of our brain is very negative. It's negative, it's obsessed, and it's vigilant, and it's not an intellect, so it's stupid, basically. So when you're stressed, you look around and you say, well, this can't be good, I can feel it, I feel trouble coming, I see fear, and also there's the freeze and flight reflex. I made this one to explain what Mike told me. Okay, next. What's next? This is this is too complicated to talk about, but we have reality hitting our nerves, and then we process it and stuff comes out. So I will just not talk to this one too long. This is one I made for myself. This is the elephant in the room, and nobody has any compassion for the elephant in the room. So that was just a joke I made for myself. This one's interesting too, maybe. This is the things we encounter. And there are things that are horrible or very enjoyable, and we like to have fun and be in flow, but also horrible stuff that can be simple, and then we just say ourselves, get over it with. But the most horrible part is what we call the grueling part of life. And it's very demanding and horrible, and we still have to do it. And I think we kind of need to navigate into the territory if we want to kind of solve the puzzle we are in. I never expected myself to do slideshow here, but that's okay. If you get bored, please let me know. This is from Marshall McLuhan. First, the tools shape us. Then we shape our tools, and then the tools shape us. So it's the things. So we encounter the world, but the world forms us just as much as we do. So this is about the car. For instance, we invented the car and see how it changed our world in a century, more than ever before. Plastic even worse. Not talking about neurotoxins and other chemicals. This is how people can relate. These are just two levels. We have the reality between us, the topic we're talking about, like here, and then between you and me, there's a relation. And the relation has a rational level, so we can have our perception and appreciation and opinion about facts, as we call them. We could even discuss if those exist. Then you can try to agree on it. And we also have our perception, appreciations, and opinion about the other person. And what also is more on a lower level, we need to like each other to have a fruitful conversation. This is the way I look at the world. It's my model, basically. It's related to Claire Graves and all that. You see, can I enlarge this? Can I come for Harry? Oh, sorry. Oops. So we have, this is related to how our brains are built. Kan ik dat vergroten, Harry? We have on the inside, consists of three brain levels: our instinctive, emotional, and mental level. And we can think about ourselves, and we have the meta level, trying to see ourselves from the outside. So this is the meta level. I could talk about myself even when I am inside myself. And in me, I have my expressions of my inner worlds, and outside of me, like this here, I have my impressions of the outer world. So and now I'm expressing what's inside of me, and I put it out in drawings, as you can see. This is also what I very much like. If you have to do things, then we kind of navigate between being overreacting and becoming aggressive and primitive, and being too passive. And what's very difficult for me is to find the right balance of how to have enough energy to step forward. This is too complicated to talk a lot about it as well, I guess. But the point is that if I have to make, if I want something to be happening, it depends on me, it hinges on me. And this is what we are doing, in my sense, that if we have a space between us, which I call the we space, this is the holy space between us, that where we have space for stuff to emerge, then we have to be not too much people, because otherwise we cannot feel each other. So we need to be a small group. And then we have to develop trust. And when we have to commit something that Sam has put forward, and then we have to hold each other accountable. And then that way we can learn, and we can spread out this habit. And yeah, well, this is how it feels, navigating complexity. Like you're stepping into the unknown. This is how I perceive everything I do until now. We have the reality, but we all map it in our brains, and we all do it differently. That's what I call the cognitive map, and that's the kind of stuff I would like to put on paper and be able to communicate about it. That's my drawings are for myself, but also to be of use in the world. What else? Oh, this is navigating as well. This is a random collection you're looking at. So I see myself, my activities, I compare them to driving a car. Navigating complexity is like navigating traffic. So I have to push behind me and pull towards me on the front. And I have stuff I take with me. I have to think about the energy I use. I have to have an idea about the distance and the destinations and the appropriate speed. And this is a very old one as well. My brain is so full with images that I need to put it on paper, because most of the images I shared here, I had forgotten them myself. I was just looking for something else. This is a known model about complexity and simplicity. The most simple part is on the left, on the right bottom side. It's the obvious, you don't have to think about it. So it's so simple. And then when it becomes a little more complicated, you need experts to tell you about, you need to go to school to learn and to practice, and it's complicated. But then it becomes even more complicated, multidimensional, then it becomes complex. And if it becomes worse, it becomes chaotic. And we develop by being able to survive in the simple situations, more complicated situations, even in complex situations, and sometimes even in chaotic situations. And when you master that, you can go back and teach it to others, and then you can explain the chaotic in complex terms, and the complex terms in complicated terms, and back to the obvious. And that's it. Once you master something, it's simple. You like playing the piano, people say it's simple. Drawing, I say it's simple. It's only because I've learned it.
Harry, Harry, I'm feeling that this is probably enough. How many more have you got?
Okay, two more. Oh, this is my model about. I'll skip it. About reality, I could talk about it for hours, and this is the last one. Just a joke I found somewhere, but I can understand I'm just overloading you guys. But it's just to get the glance of what I'm doing. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Out.
Wow, that's amazing. It's
just scratching the surface.
Exactly. But there's so much richness there, Harry. Thank you.
Harry, you're not overloading at all. You always wrote to me stuck, overload or whatever. No, I think it's an opening of a very interesting way, like I know in exhibitions with finissage and opening of the exhibition. All this each needs some space. And I think you should have an individual session for that, where everybody had the chance to see at all of the slides before and make some comments. And then we should go onto the meta level, like I said, with a meta paradigm, to really look in what was burning in you and how to bring it to the next level. If we focus on a certain word or on a certain interpretation, we are not really getting to the gist of what you're putting into your 20 slides. So I think I feel this slides like, where's the compassion? Did anyone thought about the compassion of the elephant when everybody else was just looking what the elephant might look like? I think this is very much triggering, and I think there's a temptation to get lost into details. I think we are here on a very special group, so we maybe take any meaning as a speculation and look in what is your deeper journey and compassion.
Was that a direct question? The last one? No, okay.
Yeah, I like Heiner's response to this. It is a lot to take in one shot, but I think it's a very good glimpse of the things that you think about, the things that you care about, the things that occupy your time. When I was 14 years old, let me just tell a small story. I just moved to Seattle with my family, and not knowing any better, at the school that I went to, I signed up for a philosophy class. And normally in philosophy class, that's only reserved for seniors. I was coming in as a junior, but they let me take the class anyway. The last 30 days of the year, this was a year-long class, of the students had one entire day to present what they believed. You know, what was good, what was bad, how does the world work, what do you respect, what's your relationship with your parents, you know, why is there famine, why is there hunger, you know, why is there war, how do you see the world, and what do you want to be, how do you want to impact the world, all this sort of thing. And it took an entire class hour for each student to do this. I got the sense when Harry was walking through that we were getting that glimpse of Harry, what he believed in, how he saw the world, how it works, you know, what he cares about, all of that. Our philosophy teacher called this the credo. Credo basically, I think, is, you know, I believe in Latin. And I think that that is an excellent way to get an introduction to someone. Not at the necessarily, you know, superficial, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm publishing, all that, but just, you know, much more deeply. What do I care about? Why am I here? What's important to me? All that sort of thing. So I feel that if we each have a chance to do that, and then look at how those connect and map and associate, you know, and cohere with each other, I think that would be remarkable. And I think that's the possibility that, Tammy's always been hinting at. Harry, you're giving us a deep link at. Heiner, you've been thirsting, I think, for that. And I think I very much support a round of those. I would very much like to see that.
So, Anna, Tammy, Harry, Sam, your credo in 1 hour, not on a hot seat, but in a wheelchair. No, in a, how do you say, in your bed.
Hammock?
By the way, that credo exercise was given on the very first day of school. So we had an entire year to put that together.
Which you would need.
Yeah, especially since before that class, I didn't have an original thought in my brain whatsoever. Okay, all those first 14 years was all other people's thinking, and I was just parroting.
I think we have the feeling, well, I'm going to talk from me. I have the feeling that what I have to say about my life wouldn't be that interesting. But I feel like the things that Harry has spoken about his life, I feel really interested in. I guess, my feeling is I just know my life, so it's nothing new. And I would be happy to do that. That feels like a good thing to do.
We TV.
We TV.
One example, Harry, when you were going through your Marshall McLuhan.
Yeah,
sorry. Anna, go ahead.
Go on. Oh. I was just particularly interested when you lost your faith. What happened with that? That somehow struck me as quite a big thing to happen to, and it obviously was. You crawled up this mountain and spent some time really desperately asking for a sign, and nothing came.
I survived. I might have come out better even, because now I take my own responsibility and don't leave it to inshallah or something. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, maybe, we could all talk about what our concept of God is, but this idea that somehow this power is supposed to guide us, or be some mentor or something in our lives, when in a way this feeling of actually really making sure that you were responsible for yourself, I mean, that was so clear. And to me, that's still coming from that power. What that experience that you had was real. And for me, this concept of God that I have anyway is this feeling of reality, of something very real that will only show me the truth. So to me, it wasn't so much, you interpreted it as losing your faith. Maybe it certainly changed from what it had been, which was to do with the religion and the ritual and going to church and listening to all the lectures and all of that. It became much more internal. which is beautiful. So to me, I wouldn't see it as any loss. It was your gain.
Well, I could agree now, but then it felt different.
Yeah. But you're still describing it now as lost your faith. So maybe it's time to update that description. This was when you found yourself.
I don't know if I yet did that.
I think you're well on your way.
Made a step, yeah.
I should. I'm 64.
Oh, there's no shoulds in this business.
I ought to, I think.
Harry, you're so young. What
Yeah.
I got out of your thing is that now the fourth time this week, Marshall McLuhan was mentioned. I was maybe beginning of the week was at this Transmediale opening. Marshall McLuhan and the Arts, War and Peace in the Global Village. It's an exhibition open since, I think, another 2 weeks or so. But you see Marshall McLuhan, his family, his neighbors, which was Anatole Rappaport in Toronto, were so important. And they were all, like you, Harry, incredibly misunderstood. So take your time. Marshall McLuhan wrote this book, The Media as a Message, and it was a spelling mistake. His son, Eric, is repeating that again and again. So it was that the media are massaging and transforming and maybe beating and working on us like a body workout. And what they brought out of it, out of the spelling error, that it's a message. Medias are not the message. We have to see who, why, where to, and who is riding and who is the horse. So I really felt, being in all the struggle with the Jean Gebse people around now taking over McLuhan. So these are schools having their fights, having their tribes, having their fights. I think, no, Harry, I think you're on a very interesting trip, and I would like to see all your slides. So like typed in that, I can comment. And if many people can comment on all of the single slides, so we can make a bottom line on the all slides, and then review all your slides in total.
I might upload them to Flickr or something so that everybody can comment anytime, anywhere if they want. What would be the best place to do? I don't know yet. I'm open for recommendations. But I'll share my stuff. It's just to steal and to use.
So Google Presentations is a good way to share comments on slides. That's one possibility.
These are just drawings. I
know.
You saw them in preview. These are. I could make slides out of it, but it's far more simple. Just upload the pics, I would guess.
Sam, you say dual presentations? What?
Google Presentations.
Okay.
The Google, Office suite gives you ability to share and comment and chat, annotate.
Okay, I'll see. I got the Google Photos. Would that help as well?
Actually, if you just send it to me, I can convert that in about 10 seconds.
I'm going to have
teamwork. So nice to see you, Anna.
It's been lovely seeing you all again. And see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Harry, well, where I was going with that is possibly half a dozen of your slides, look very familiar to me because, it's not surprising. A lot of this stuff is in our subconscious or has been in various different teachings. So there's immediate connection, an immediate conversation possible when we have those kinds of ideas. So the first one I'll mention is the one where you said this is a McLuhan-inspired diagram, where it had things about, actions, and perceptions, influencing thinking, et cetera, et cetera. And there's another model which I've been taught for about the last 20 years, involving thoughts and feelings, driving action, driving consequences or results, which then, of course, affect your thoughts and feelings again. So there's another feedback cycle there, which maps loosely to your McLuhan model. So I think that's a very interesting conversation I would like to have with you. At least just a single example there.
Yes, well, a lot of my drawings are a result of kind of mapping different concepts on top of each other. I kind of try to keep a coherent model, a hypothesis of a picture of how things work. And what you see, a lot of them are just kind of distillations of many books into a simple picture, because those books tend to be heavy, as Heiner demonstrated, and I get lost in them.
Yeah. I'm going to go back and revisit my own question, which is what genetic mutation I would like to see. And I like Tammy's, and I think at least one other person echoed that, because to me it looked like it was possible there by strengthening or multiplying our mirror neurons to be able to get that strong sense of empathy. Where I went was to really see whether there was something possible that would evolve, that would help us do this theoretically possible thing that we call communication. Is it possible for us to actually do some kind of telepathy or some kind of, whole body sensing, whole body meaning derivation? And that's where I was trying to go with all of that, And I'll call it telepathy for now, but it's all the chakras, not just one or two. And that's where I would like to see some. Although, at the sense, I run the risk of being accused that we would then evolve into the Borg. That's not what I'm trying to talk about. Okay, are you guys all familiar with the Borg concept? Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. So I'm just wondering what evolves something that enables us to do communication better. Over.
I like to match up your question with what Tammy, Anna was talking about. That maybe just basically God's intention to evoke my own responsibility by being silent towards me. Recently, it's a concept that's been with me for years, but lately I'm trying to kind of take it more seriously, think about it, and become conscious of what's really happening around. I get them from somewhere else, so they're basically not mine. I get my ideas, I receive them. So they come from somewhere else. From all about the 0 point fields and somewhere there. So there's a huge, real domain of possibilities outside of me. And sometimes I'm open and aware enough to see a new possibility that hasn't seen by anybody else yet. And I tend to call this an idea. And it can range from the paperclip to far more far-reaching ideas. But that suggests basically that I'm not producing stuff, but I'm receiving it. So that would, in a way, suggest that I am super sensitive to, I already have this possibility. And that our people are psychic, or they can do telepathy and can, all these difficult words. English is kind of failing me here. But, it's also, there are a huge amount of stories that people had near-death experiences, of more than that, has felt the pain that child suffered and all that. So we might have already have all those possibilities, but not have evolved them or lost them, maybe due to civilization, as we call it. Over.
See, I'm going to give you and everybody else more credit than just receiving. Because when ideas bump up against other ideas, new combinations are possible. You know, and I think that receiving or channeling, I think, is yes, you can do that, but I think it's a limited way of seeing what's possible. I would say if you take, yeah, I mean, I think that's basically it. The combinatorics can be assembled in different ways, and new ideas will then impinge on some existing idea, and certain things will scatter off, but something will remain. And I think you could call it channeling, you could call it listening, but there is a composition involved here that is happening when we mull over a combination of ideas. And so I'm just trying to say there's something there. It's not just all about being big antennas. Over.
I didn't suggest that. We have our own capacities here as well. And there's a great TED talk about when ideas have sex. And as a designer, I also know that I got one idea and then it spawns other ideas because it's combining with everything I know already. And I do that a lot, but I have also the experience that when there's a really good idea, it kind of survives all these iterations afterwards. And basically the first idea was the best. And I still insist that I didn't produce that one. And I don't know what's happening. I'm not saying that I know what's happening. It's something I experience, and I cannot explain this away. I wish I could, because then I would be the great smart guy that makes ideas, but I can't do that. So my ego is crushed once more.
I just had this conversation with Deb on near-death experiences, on closed-in, on experiences which are coming out of the ether or out of the air. So I think we are very, very close with that. I did a few years ago an open space with people who have ALS or totally are into intensive care, and nobody, not the doctors, not the patients, not the family, not the observers, had any language. So I think a special section on this way of Heureka and intuition, and not owning, but giving and gifting, is another topic. I feel we are very close here. I'm very sorry that Deb is not there, because all her book is exactly about this. How do you get the power, the drive to do something out of yourself?
I didn't understand that last phrase. What does out of yourself mean?
Taking your own viewpoint out, doing something which is there where you feel there are obligations. Sorry, I don't speak so consistently.
No, thanks, Heiner.
Yeah, I'd like to explore a little bit in that the channeling space. I mean, the alphabet code was definitely, that didn't come from me. That's something that I perceived, and I was clear about that from the beginning. I remember a TED Talk from a few years ago. I can't remember the author, but she talked about genius and the ancient Greek way of understanding genius was that the spirit would move through you. It wasn't about you owning this genius and that you were special because of it, but rather that the genius would come through you, and if it was unimpeded, best, as unimpeded as possible. And yet Sam, absolutely, there is the me in me that is choosing to, that has all of my experiences and lenses and my ways of knowing and believing what I believe, that frames how I understand what I'm seeing. And those choices are part of it too. The choices that I've made in the past to be who I am, to understand the world as I do now. And so there is that piece that I have control of. And I think that the balance between those things is that's the kind of equilibrium tension thing that we're experiencing as a group, as we and rub up next to each other, right? Like it's almost like we're not touching each other, but we're in Harry's cuddle puddle in its own kind of way.
Yeah, Tammy, I was particularly curious when you had that insight for the 27th character. Where did that come from? Because that's directly to your thing.
Sorry, I didn't quite. You cut out a little bit.
Your 27th character to complete the 3 rows of 9, because the alphabet, at least in English, is only 26, right? So you had an inspiration that there was a 27th. Did you feel that was a channeling, or that was a creation, or that was a combination, or what was that?
That was just the completion of the process of listening, deep listening. Like I wasn't judging. I wasn't even really counting, right? It just, at the end, after the paradigm shift, Z, there was the next letter, which is the way through the paradigm shift. So it was it's a bit of an alpha and omega join, right? Connecting all that is with the paradigm shift. It wasn't about sense making in the moment. It was about listening. It was purely receiving the information. And that's why when Harry was expressing, it just comes through him. I really, really have that sense based on my experience. And it is interesting to look at all of what I had learned before then, and how all of that information fed into this meaning matrix, because the alphabet code is a meaning matrix. So all of my prior knowledge and understanding fed into the lens that I saw it through. And it itself deconstructs meaning. So it's quite the puzzle. And part of why I have come to really believe the information in the alphabet code is because I couldn't possibly just paint that picture. I couldn't possibly come up with that kind of elegant depth. It's not possible. And so, in the poem that I wrote, there's this piece, part of it where, about language and, how we were like children pointing at things and naming them and thinking that we understand them. And this is, we talk about science and it's provable and all of these things. These are just, the big girl panties and big boy shorts that we put on to be like, yes, this is true. But again, it's based on belief. And so I think that challenging all of that is where we're at. And we have facilities to know more. And we have capacities to be able to understand and express and communicate. And truly, I think the alphabet code is a very, very powerful tool. to deconstruct meaning and to build, and then to at the very least look at language as a lens that we're using to be able to understand our world. What happens when we knock on the corners of that and propose that maybe each letter has a specific meaning that decodes the understanding of the meaning of it within multiple languages? Is it true? I don't know. Does it seem to be true? Yes. How interesting.
How much could you tell a little more about the use since you received it? How long was this ago? It was quite some time, right?
Yeah, I was in the summer of 2000.
So 18 years now. No, 17.
Yeah. And
so you have used it quite a bit, haven't you?
Well, I have, and there's one of the main pieces is it's a way to develop your own consciousness and become embodied. So it's taken me 18 years to bring it more into my body so that I can even express it, so that it can be held and that meaning can be held in my body and demonstrated. There's a demonstratability about understanding what it is. And to do that, I have to know that I am all it is, being, perceiving, the foundational law of energy, and interacting as empowered, eternal, and complete. Right? That's not a small thing.
No. And it needs to be spread, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to work in this group and whomever wants to help to be able to get it out there.
Yes. Use my capacities if you can.
I will.
You told us to ask and not just wait until I offer it.
Yes. And you and I, Harry, have our piece tomorrow with the Hollow Crew.
Yes, I know.
So and these are, ways of, I'd like to be able to understand Holo and help others understand. So it's similar.
Yes, I get it, I think.
Yeah.
So we might be getting somewhere finally, Heiner.
So I'm actually curious. I can't see myself. Can you see me?
No. And Heiner is frozen.
Heiner's frozen. You're blank.
I thought he was very attentive, but he's just frozen. He tends to move about. Heiner, are you still with us?
Okay, you're back, Sam.
Sam is back.
I just wanted to say one more follow-up, and this could be important, this could actually be not important, but I kind of get a sense that it might actually be, and that is that I would like for us not to mischaracterize science as an unshaken system of belief. The way I understand science, its role is to question everything. So, if properly applied, the scientific method really is very, very skeptical on itself. And that's why it's certain. And so I would like that not to be misunderstood. That's just what I wanted to add to this conversation. Over.
Yes, and reacting to that, Sam, I didn't imply that in any way. Not. But I know there's, to me, something when it's scientifically proven. Aha, Kijk, can you see yourself? The moving part in the dead Heiner. There's a dead Heiner as well. Can you see that yourself, Heiner, on the screen? It seems like you're very well listening, but you're not.
It was my ghost speaking.
Yes.
No, my alter ego is dead or frozen. No, I think maybe tomorrow in the Holo. I don't know what it's about, but the Holo sounds interesting. I'm part frozen, part alive. I really enjoyed this session and I have to dash away in 2 minutes. So anyways, this was one of my star sessions. And excuse me that I'm not speaking for real.
Thank you so much, Heiner. I enjoyed your presence. Thank you so much.
Look forward to our next conversation, Heiner. Bye-bye.
Yes.
And orange looks good on you.
Yeah, it does. So I am nearing completion too. If I love today's conversation, that this came to a place that I've been really yearning for.
I like the way the things get connected.
To me, it strikes that the old model of academia, where a feudal lord gets together with his servants and serfs and decides, what to do and how to proclaim truth and how to push the boundaries of truth, is really an old model, and that what's more possible now is this much more peer-to-peer kind of sharing, where we can take a look at Harry's credo, potentially Heiner's credo, Tammy's credo, my credo, and we can then do that very strong networking, as opposed to it being, now that really is the old hierarchical model, that old, here's my professor and here's all his advice, that old, here's my professor. I really think that pushing on this model as a way to, derives a way to...
Could all except Sam mute because you use echo. I'm losing you, Sam. Heiner, could you mute as well? Yours? Your ghost is muted. You're not. Yeah. Okay. Now, yes.
Testing. Is this echoing? Okay. Anyway, so I was just finishing by saying that this is really a case where the academic model, not the scientific method, but the academic model, is an old hierarchical model that I think we are supplanting with this more peer-to-peer kind of deep connection. Over.
More.
So I feel it's time to kind of wrap up because I'm hungry. Heiner has to go. Tammy is tired. And Sam does this. Kidding, Sam. So anybody wants to say something quick how it feels, or what any closing sentences or remarks?
I think it should not be an illusion, a fata morgana. There's a collective responsibility connected to what we're doing here. Otherwise, it's something like just sweet dreams and hopes. Many people just believe, oh, now this will be paradise. No, it will be not. It is just another channel, and we should keep the frames of reference and our frames of mind involved and considered.
Yes.
I feel nourished, and yeah, I really want to watch this one because something very, very special happened at a bunch of different points, and we've had this in many, many conversations. This sense that I had in this one, where we're really sharing and passing the baton back and forth. But yeah, today felt like there was a point of completion, or like beginning, or something up leveling. That's it. It felt like whoop. So I'm
okay. Well, now I would like to make this practical too. Sam knows does the automatic transcribing, and you're going to rewatch. I mostly do not. I don't hardly ever see my own notes and my own drawings. Once I finish them, I don't know what that is. But it would be very interesting that if you note something like, here's the special thing, that you note it, and then we can look at it specifically, collectively, what's happening here? What kind of leveled it up? What did actually happen? Because there's that would be very interesting to kind of discuss on a meta level as well.
Great, I'll share my insights.
Thank you. Hey, this was interesting. There was the dead Heiner disappearing. What happened? Anybody did something? I had two Heiners on my screen and I went pling, and did you do anything, Heiner?
Something happened. Heiner might have been involved. Maybe it was the Great Spirit.
Or it was channeled. Well, that's in the recording as well, so I'm curious. Heiner, are you still with us? Yes, you are. Okay.
Last thought, Sam?
I think where we go with this,
upwards and onwards.
It's always in the back of my mind. But I feel that the connections are stronger, which means that the trust is stronger and the generosity for listening is stronger. And I think that's what's being created here. And I think that's something that feels new and unique and strong.
Awesome. See you guys tomorrow. Maybe. Well, no, not you, Sam, but best to Gail.
Okay, bye for now then.